सिम्पोजियमको पहिलो दिन 8वटा कार्यपत्रमा सघन छलफल भएको थियो। हिमालय होटलको रातो बैठक र स्काइलाइन कक्षमा समानान्तर कार्यशाला भएको थियो। पत्रकार युवराज घिमिरेले मोडरेट गर्नुभएको रातो बैठकको पहिलो कार्यशालामा प्राध्यापक डेभिड हम्बर्गले इतिहासका अमित डोबहरूमा बहुसांस्कृतिक राज्यको परिकल्पना विषयमा आफ्नो कार्यपत्र प्रस्तुत गर्नुभएको थियो।
One thing I want to develop today is an idea of cultural rights from an anthropological point of view. So the first part of my paper is a little bit theoretical and abstract, although I will try to also make it concrete. The second half of the paper will be working from this anthropological, a fully anthropological construction of cultural rights, and sort of ask the question, how can this be applied in the current context of Nepal? When I originally conceived of this paper, I imagined doing more ethnography and more history, hence the part of the title, The Residues of an Irreversible History, but I'm not going to be able to do that in this spoken version today. I also ask your patience. I am going to read. Finally, it is also possible that new styles of politics could emerge in a robust federal system that empowers Adivasi Janajati communities at multiple levels. The current fractiousness of the Nepali party system is not circumstantial. As all Janajati are painfully aware, these political forms, the very style of politics in Nepal, have a very particular cultural inflection or style deriving largely from North Indian models and associated with Nepal's elite. I was with a group of Janajati a few nights ago, and they were sitting around without prompting from me, talking about their, why there are no, come on, in this case, mantris in Nepal. And they were talking about how their culture is such that, when we sit around and we say, no, you go, and then they say, you go, and that's not the way you advance yourself, they were arguing. They sense a different kind of way of doing things. New forms of collective politics might emerge in a federal system where the disempowered, bring different forms of interaction into the political process. Fostering cultural diversity in the forms outlined here is thus a huge potential resource for sociocultural transformation. So, final example, here drawn, Catherine March, who was recently here in Nepal, who suggested in a recent editorial on International Women's Day, which I think appeared in the Kathmandu's Post, Nepal does not need to look outside to the neoliberal West for models of gender transformation. In many Adivasi Janajati communities, women and men can, on the basis of ongoing gender relations, be a source for creative alternatives to the ideology of dominant populations that inherently disempower women. Dominant populations have a lot to learn for the Adivasi Janajati, Dajubai, and Didibaine Haru if they take the time to listen and to learn.
मानवशास्त्री बिहारी कृष्ण श्रेष्ठले नेपालमा प्रजातान्त्रिक राजनीतिको पुनर्निर्माण, शक्तिको पुनर्वितरणमा जातीय पहिचान निर्धारक तत्त्वको रूपमा विषयमा आफ्नो कार्यपत्र प्रस्तुत गर्नुभएको थियो।
The title that I have today for my paper is Reformulating Democratic Culture in Nepal, Ethnic Identity as a Determinant in the Redistribution of Power. The current position in this respect is that the Constituent Assembly has a draft under their consideration that divides Nepal into 14 provinces, and of the 14 provinces, 10 of them are named after ethnic identity, and the four others more on natural resources. The issues that are being debated, there are two sides of the opinion, two sides to the argument. Those in favor generally maintain that deprivation is one of the causes. Priority political rights should be given to those groups, to the Tibeto-Burman groups, in order to enable them to come at par with that of the Bahan Kshatriya combined. So this is one of the logic for division of the country along ethnic lines with priority rights, political rights going into the ethnic groups. Proper devolution of authority is sufficient for most developing miracles. Community forestry and EMGs and mothers group and FCSPs were Panchayat Day innovations. However, our core of the politicians at the center, devolutions assure effectiveness, inclusiveness, and equity at the same time. So, the sooner we get rid of this federalization bogey, and they were undemocratically imposed on us anyway, because it was agreed upon by a handful of parties in Delhi or someplace that we will declare Nepal, as a federal democratic republic. So, federalization has not been the result of a referendum, which is the regular democratic practice over the world. So, the sooner we get rid of this federalization bogey, undemocratically imposed on the people to start with, the sooner we will have a new constitution. And however, local governance structure will have to be redefined to recognize user groups as a basic tier in the structure. The last point that I'm making here is that, see, when we talk about local government, we stop at DDC level. DDC itself is an aggregate institution based on smaller, DDC itself should be made an aggregate institution based on smaller user-based stakeholder participant institutions at the grassroots, like the forest user group, mothers group, you name them. Therefore, there is a need, if we are to derive benefit out of devolution and local governance structure, our local governance structure has to be redefined in such a way that user groups come as the basic tier in the structure of governance, into local governance in the country.
स्काइलाइनमा भएको दोस्रो कार्यशालामा स्तमकार प्रशान्त झाले मोडरेट गर्नुभएको थियो, जहाँ प्राध्यापक जोन ग्रेले जातीय र जातीयता, आधुनिक लोकतान्त्रिक संघीय राज्यको निर्माणको लागि समाजशास्त्रीय तर्कहरू र यसको उपयोगिता विषयमा कार्यपत्र प्रस्तुत गर्नुभएको थियो। उहाँले जाति र जातीयता जस्तै सामाजिक समूहको निर्माणमा समाजशास्त्रीय आधारहरू खोजी गर्ने लगायतका विषयमा कार्यपत्र केन्द्रित गर्नुभएको थियो।
First and foremost, I want to thank Professor Mishra and the organizing committee for as well as the Social Inclusion Research Fund. I'm also daunted by the task. This is largely because the debates about the issues of ethnicity and federalization among Nepalis of all walks of life, whether scholars, politicians, or citizens, over the past several years have been and continue to be characterized by a very high level of analytic sophistication and covering a comprehensive set of issues and engendering a passionate commitment among all to bring about a new constitution and a federal government that is both democratic and Nepali. And it's in this spirit of analysis and passion that I'm here today. And now, given the topic of the symposium, and I'm quoting from them, whether or not or to what extent ethnicity can provide the best possible platform for a federalized structure for a new in-the-making state of Nepal, I suggest that we can characterize one potential course of the change envisioned by the interim constitution as a transition from a unitary state based upon a society organized by caste to a federal state based upon a society conceived largely to be organized by ethnicity. I highlight the potential change from caste to ethnicity because the difference between these two types of social groupings has been less prominent in the debates about federalization. The 2001 census, for example, does not distinguish between them in the list of the diversity of the population, instead using the heading caste/ethnic group. This usage has been widely adopted in government documents. For example, the report of the Constituent Assembly's Restructuring Committee responsible for proposing the federal subunits also employs this contraction. It is also used in reports by international organizations. My theme, then, is to suggest how and why it might be important to distinguish between caste and ethnicity in the context of constitution writing and nation building for a country composed of a population with diverse languages, religions, and cultures. To return to my theme, a society composed of groups based upon ethnic identity has a sociologic different from that of a society based upon a caste system. Firstly, ethnicity is non-holistic. Because of the contrastive process by which ethnic boundaries are created and maintained, ethnicity tends, as Pitambar Shambra has pointed out, to be exclusionary or separative rather than incorporative. Finally, in terms of the form of relations between groups, unlike the caste system whose hierarchy enabled and legitimated economic exploitation and political marginalization of lower caste, the social equivalence of ethnic groups does not inherently legitimate such exploitation and marginalization, though, and this is important to say, this can happen in a climate lacking democratic principles in the practice of government. One of the hallmarks of anthropology is that it engages in comparative analysis as a means of highlighting aspects of social life that might otherwise be implicit. This has been the strategy that I've taken in this presentation. What the comparison of caste and ethnicity does make explicit is a weak predisposition to holism and incorporation in the sociologic of ethnicity. But this does not mean that I'm advocating any return to a caste system. Instead, I'm suggesting that a federalized state based upon ethnicity, that in a federalized state based upon ethnicity, the legacy of its sociologic is one that a new constitution will need to address innovatively, not just in selecting the principles for the delineation of federal subunits, but also in designing the distribution of shared and separate powers among them, so that every individual Nepali and every group, no matter how its identity is ascribed, has a stake in Nepal as a transcendent whole.
दलित अधिकार कर्मी गणेश विकेले संहितामा दलितहरूको अपनत्व हुने सही विकल्प गैर भौगोलिक संहिता विषयमा कार्यपत्र प्रस्तुत गर्नुभएको थियो। उहाँले दलित सभालाई नेपालको संघीय व्यवस्थाले कसरी सम्बोधन गर्न सक्छ भनेर आफ्नो प्रस्तुति केन्द्रित गर्नुभएको थियो।
अहिले हामी इतिहासमै पहिलो पटक दलितहरूको समेत अपनत्व महसुस हुने खालको हामी संहिताको मोडेलमा जाँदैछौँ। करिब अब संहितामा जाने निष्कर्षमा हामी अगाडि बढिरहेका सन्दर्भमा मुलुकको अघि सभामुखज्यूले पनि भन्नुभयो, मुलुकको करिब 20% संख्यामा रहेको दलित समुदायका सन्दर्भमा अहिलेसम्म कुनै राजनीतिक क्षेत्रमा कुनै राजनीतिक दलको केन्द्रीय स्तरमा केन्द्रीय कमिटीमा दलित सम्बन्धी अलग छलफल भएको कुनै दस्तावेजमा छलफल भएको मलाई कम्तीमा थाहा छैन। दलित समुदायका लागि के गर्ने भन्ने सन्दर्भमा उनीहरूलाई चाहिने रोजगारीमा यताउतिमा अगाडि ल्याउने भन्ने बाहेकका छलफलहरू धेरै कम हुने गर्दछन्। अहिले पनि संविधान सभाका फरक मतका अथवा जाने त्यो विवादित विषयका सन्दर्भमा छलफलहरू हुँदाखेरि दलित समुदायको विषयको छलफल त्यहाँ छैन। अब अहिले विश्वका करिब 27 भन्दा बढी देशहरूमा भएको संहिताका चाहिने छलफलहरू बहसहरू हेर्दाखेरि भारत मात्र एउटा यस्तो अपवाद हो जहाँ दलित समस्या छ, अरू देशहरूमा यो दलित समस्या छैन। अब यस्ता खालका जातीय समस्याहरू होलान् तर दलित समस्या छैन। जहाँ दलितै समस्या भएको भारतमा यो संहिताले चाहिँ त्यहाँका दलितहरूलाई अपनत्व महसुस गराउने खालको कुरा भएन। विशेष अम्बेडकरले संविधान जारी गरे पछाडिका स्पिचहरू पढ्ने हो भने उहाँले चाहिने दलितहरू लगायतका समुदायका सन्दर्भमा यो फेरि पनि केन्द्रीकृत शासन प्रणालीबाट मात्र उनीहरूको सम्बोधन हुन सक्दछ भन्ने खालको उहाँका अभिव्यक्तिहरू देखिन्छन्। त्यसो हुनाले यो दलित समुदायको सन्दर्भमा हामीले चाहिने नेपालमा भारतको अनुभव र अरू देशहरूको चाहिँ संहिताको शास्त्रीय ढाँचाबाट हामी अगाडि बढ्दा स्वाभाविक रूपमा नेपालका दलितहरूको सही सम्बोधन हुने सम्भावना धेरै कम देखिन्छ। यद्यपि अब एउटा राज्य बन्छ, त्यो राज्यभित्र विभिन्न प्रदेशहरू बन्दछन्, ती प्रदेशहरूभित्र दलितहरूको स्वाभाविकमा जनसङ्ख्याका आधारमा बाँडफाँड भइहाल्छ भन्न त सकिएला। तर जसरी हरेक समुदायले आफूलाई चाहिने यो फेडरलिजम मेरो हो भन्ने खालको अपनत्व महसुस गराउने हिसाबले जाने हो भने त्यो फेडरलिजमको कुनै न कुनै अंशको अंशिया चाहिँ दलितहरूलाई बनाइनु पर्दछ भन्ने मेरो दाबी छ। वर्गीय विश्लेषणमा आधारित वितरण प्रणाली बनाउने, राजनीतिक दलित दलहरूभित्रको आन्तरिक लोकतन्त्रलाई सुदृढ गराउने, पहिचान सहितको परिचयको व्यवस्था गर्ने, रोडम्याप सहितको आवधिक आरक्षणको व्यवस्था गर्ने, कृषि सुधार सहितको वैज्ञानिक भूमिदार गर्ने, आरक्षणभित्रको आरक्षण दलितभित्रको पनि त्यो जाने जस्तै मुसहरबाट सुरुवात गरेर अथवा बाजुहरूबाट सुरुवात गरेर जाने आरक्षणभित्रको आरक्षणको प्याकेज लागू गर्ने, यसरी चाहिँ अगाडि जान सकियो भने केही सूचकाङ्कहरू बनाएर जस्तै दलित ह्युमन डेभलपमेन्ट इन्डेक्स बनाएर जाने उनीहरूको जाने उत्थानको प्याकेज बनाएर जान सकिन्छ भन्ने कुरा मैले चाहिँ यहाँ राखेको छु। अब यो गैर भौगोलिक सङ्घीय प्रणाली सहित वैज्ञानिक आरक्षण मार्फत आर्थिक शोषणका विरुद्ध संरक्षण, सम्पादकीय कार्यपालिका विरुद्ध संरक्षण, सामाजिक एवं शासकीय अन्यायका विरुद्ध संरक्षण, सामाजिक बहिष्कार विरुद्धको संरक्षण, कार्यपालिका प्रतिनिधित्वको अधिकार, जनसङ्ख्याका आधारमा सेवामा प्रतिनिधित्वको अधिकार, उच्च शिक्षामा सुविधा, नयाँ बस्ती